Hello and welcome back to another video. This video I'm going to be talking about seizure warning signs or seizure auras that someone might get before they have a seizure. Not everyone who has seizures will experience seizure warning before they have a seizure. I have personally always experienced a seizure warning sign before the seizure occurs, which means that I know that a seizure is coming. A seizure aura in this context, means that there is a warning sign before someone has a seizure. Not everyone who has seizures will have warning before they have a seizure, but for me personally, I've always had warning before a seizure. Even if it's just a matter of seconds warning, it's still warning. Even though I have warning before my seizures, the warning that I get before each seizure is different each time, and therefore I won't always get the same warning feeling before the seizure happens. It will change. The warning before a seizure happens may also not happen at exactly the same time before the seizure happens. So, for example, I might get a warning today. If I were to have a seizure, I might get a warning that a seizure might happen today, maybe a few minutes before the seizure happens. But then another day, I might get a few seconds warning before the seizure happens. Or another time, I might get maybe half an hour warning, feeling that a seizure might happen soon. I never know when it's going to happen exactly. I just know that it's going to happen relatively soon. I've had thousands of seizures in the past almost 4 years since they started, and so I've become quite used to knowing my seizures, knowing the patterns of seizures, knowing the seizure warning signs before they happen. But each time I have a seizure, the warning will differ. Sometimes it's around 10 seconds before the seizure happens, sometimes it's 1 hour, sometimes it's a few hours, and sometimes it's half an hour. I never know exactly when the seizure is about to happen, so I don't sit there and look at my watch and think, oh, okay, it's going to happen exactly 5 minutes. No, I can't feel that. However, I can know roughly and gauge roughly how long it's going to be. So it might be a rough feeling that, okay, well, I've had thousands of seizures in the past few years, so I know with this feeling that I have in my body, maybe I've got around 5 minutes, or maybe I've got a few seconds. On only one occasion, I had 6 hours warning. I didn't know that a seizure was going to happen in 6 hours' time. However, a few years ago when I woke up, immediately I could feel immense pressure in my head, which is for me a seizure warning sign, and I felt like the seizure only can be described as far away. So it feels like it was at the back of my head, and it feels like it was travelling towards the front of my head as time went on, and I could feel it at the back of my head. So I knew, okay, it feels far away, and I knew I had maybe a few hours. I didn't know it was going to be 6 hours, but I knew that I had enough time to go to the neighbouring town by bus and back, which took me around 3 hours. So I knew I had time, but I didn't know, okay, it's going to happen in 6 hours. It could have happened in 2 hours. It could have happened in 3 hours. But for me, on that particular occasion, I knew it was very far away. I can usually gauge how far away the seizure is based on the odd feelings in my head. If I have odd sensations at the front of my head, I know that the seizure is about to happen or it's close to happening. But if I have the seizure feeling at the back of my head, I know that I've got time. It might be maybe an hour, it might be 2 hours, it might be half an hour. And the closer the feeling gets towards the front of my head, the sooner I know the seizure is going to happen. Like I said, I've had thousands and thousands of seizures over the past almost 4 years, and so I'm so used to it, it's become part of my daily life, and I've adapted and learnt a lot about my own body and a lot about my own health and the patterns in which my seizures happen and the feelings that I get beforehand. But when I first started having seizures, I obviously didn't know anything about seizures, and I didn't know anything about seizure warning signs either. I just knew that when I first started having seizures, I would feel suddenly very, very unwell and sort of like an impending doom sort of feeling, like something horrendous was about to happen. So at the time, when I first started having seizures, I did on a few occasions fall to the floor because I didn't know that a seizure was going to happen so soon. But since I've had thousands and thousands of seizures now, I rarely will fall to the floor out of nowhere, because I know that I need to sit down when I have a seizure warning sign, and that will keep me safe as much as possible. Describing seizures or describing seizure warning signs is really, really difficult to describe to someone who hasn't ever experienced a seizure. Because before I had seizures, I'd never experienced a seizure. I didn't know anything about seizures. I didn't even know that non-epileptic seizures existed. I was so new to it all. And so if someone was trying to describe this to me before I had seizures, I would have really struggled to understand and comprehend what they meant. I would have really struggled to relate and to understand how that person might be feeling. For me, having warning before the seizure happens is a really positive thing, because it means that I can keep myself safe and sit down before the seizure happens, or get myself to a place of safety, or tell somebody if I'm with someone that I'm going to have a seizure. And that means that I'm less likely to injure myself at the time of having a seizure. If I didn't have warning before having a seizure, I could really badly injure myself, because I could be in the middle of doing anything. I could be showering, I could be cooking, I could be crossing a road, I could be walking, I could be doing some gardening. And if I suddenly had a seizure out of nowhere without knowing it was about to happen, then actually I could fall to the floor and hurt myself badly. And I think that is where there is a huge risk with seizures and injury and people getting harmed during a seizure, is if they don't have warning and can't get themselves to a place of safety, they might bang their head and have a head injury, which obviously becomes really dangerous. The first few seizures I had, I didn't know I was about to have a seizure. It was new to me, and so there have been some occasions where I have hurt myself a little bit whilst falling to the ground before a seizure happens. But because I was having so many seizures so quickly, day after day, when I first started having seizures, I became quite used to it really rapidly, and so I was very quickly aware that what I was experiencing before the seizure was a seizure warning sign, and it meant that I could tell somebody that I wasn't feeling well. I'll also explain that just because somebody gets a warning before the seizure happens doesn't mean that they can control them. Getting a warning before a seizure, the best way I can describe it is the same feeling that your body might give you a warning that you might need to use the toilet soon. So when you need to go to the toilet beforehand, your body will give you a sign or a feeling in your bladder that your bladder is full, and actually in a minute you might need to go to the toilet and empty your bladder. And that is sort of similar when you have a seizure warning sign, at least in my experience, is that my body gives me a sign or a feeling or an aura that gives me indication that soon I'm going to have a seizure. It's a similar concept. So your body might give you signals that you're hungry and you need to eat soon, and you might feel that in your body as having a growling stomach or feeling of an empty stomach and the desire to eat. That's a signal that your body needs some food, and therefore you'll need to eat soon. And that's similar to having seizure warning signs. It's just a way for your body to communicate something. Seizures can happen anywhere at any time, and they don't wait to happen when you're in a safe space, say in your home. They can happen anywhere. There have been plenty of times where I've had seizures outside in public by myself and or with other people, and I wish that it hadn't happened. I wish that it had just waited until I got home when I was safely by myself, where lots of people weren't around, so that I could deal with it by myself without anybody seeing. But instead, it happened in public because I couldn't control it. I couldn't stop myself from having a seizure in public. If it was going to happen, it's going to happen. I can only speak about my own experience, and in my case, my seizures can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter who I'm with, it doesn't matter where I am, it doesn't matter the time of day, it will just happen. If I feel a seizure warning, then it's going to happen regardless of where I am. I've had plenty of seizures at home, I've had plenty of seizures in hospital, I've had plenty of seizures at the park, I've had seizures in a coffee shop, I've had seizures in the supermarket, I've had seizures at the gym, I've had seizures in ambulances. However, somewhere I haven't had a seizure is in the middle of the night in my sleep. To my knowledge, I've never had a seizure in my sleep before. Some people, they do experience seizures whilst they are sleeping, but for me, to my knowledge, I've never had a seizure in the middle of the night whilst I've been asleep. Since I first started having seizures, I've had a huge long list of warning signs that I've had before the seizure occurs. And that list has changed massively over time, and it's also grown massively over time. I'm going to list some of the feelings that I get before I have a seizure now, but obviously I don't experience all of these symptoms at the same time before every single seizure. I might just experience one or maybe two of these feelings before a seizure happens. A big warning sign for me before I have a seizure, especially before tonic-clonic seizures, is immense pressure at the front of my head, just above my eyebrows. It feels like my brain is being squeezed. It feels horrible. It feels like my brain is about to explode. The pressure is above my eyebrows at the front of my head, and it builds up, and the closer the seizure is to happening, the worse the pressure gets. The pressure will build up at the front of my head and above my eyebrows and above my eyelids. Since I've started having seizures, my eyes have changed massively in that my eyelids are very, very heavy, whereas before I had COVID, my eyelids were never heavy. Another seizure warning sign I can get is a sudden taste of metal in my mouth. It feels like out of nowhere, I can taste a really horrible metal feeling in my mouth. Another feeling is a sudden onset of immense panic and fear. It might look very odd to someone on the outside because I can be fine 1 minute and within a matter of seconds I can be feeling extremely, extremely panicky and extremely, extremely anxious and feel extremely fearful. But it seems very strange because it's usually completely out of context. It looks like there's a huge mismatch between how I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing in my outside world and in my personal life and in my day-to-day life. It seems to come out of nowhere. And the reason I know that this is not an anxiety or mental health problem or a bad mental health day is because immediately after the seizure happens, the immense feeling of extreme panic and fear and anxiety completely disappears. And so for me, I know then that actually all that build-up of huge panic out of nowhere was actually just a sign that my body was going to have a seizure soon. Another feeling that I can get, which I've described before, is an immense feeling of impending doom. And this feels similar to a sudden onset of extreme anxiety and fear, but it feels worse. Again, it's a mismatch. It doesn't happen because I'm anxious. It happens because a seizure is going to occur. And a seizure is going to occur not because I'm anxious, but because my body, for whatever reason, is going to have a seizure. Another feeling I can get is I usually yawn a lot, over and over again, non-stop, before I have a seizure. This also happens after I have a seizure, but I will yawn non-stop out of nowhere before I have a seizure. And it's quite difficult because people who don't know I have seizures, if they see me yawning a lot, they often make funny comments about how, oh, I should go to bed earlier, or maybe I didn't sleep very well last night, or, oh, sorry that I'm keeping you up. But really what's happening is I'm about to have a seizure, and for me, yawning a lot non-stop is a sign that I can have a seizure soon. And sometimes I've had huge clusters of seizures and then I've gone out and people have seen me yawning a lot and they don't know that I have a seizure disorder. They don't know that I've just had a load of seizures. And so they will say, oh, are you tired? And I want to say, yes, I am actually. I am tired. I've just had a load of seizures. I'm going to go home and rest now. It can be difficult. So if you see someone yawning a lot, maybe try, if you can, not to make comments, because sometimes it might not be because they're tired and it might not be because they're bored. It might just be because they might have a seizure soon. Another sign I get is a sudden feeling of feeling off. That's the only way I can describe it. There's no other words to describe it other than something's not right. And I don't know how to describe it other than that, but it's an odd sensation I get in my body where it feels like something bad is about to happen, something is off, something doesn't feel right. And that's a sign that I'm going to have a seizure in a minute. Other times I know I'm about to have a seizure is usually when I'm talking. And as I'm talking, all of the words in my brain completely disappear. It feels like all of my words have suddenly gone down a huge vent and my mind is completely blank. It feels like I don't even know what a word is. There's just no words, there's nothing in my mind, and it just feels like all of the words have gone down a vent and there's nothing there. And then within a matter of seconds, I start to have a seizure. Another sign that I might have a seizure soon is a change in my eyes. Not only can my eyelids go very heavy, and I think they are now, as I'm making this video, I feel like I might have a seizure soon and I can feel my eyelids getting heavier. But aside from that, is something else changes in my eyes. My eyes can go very glassy or shiny. I don't know how to describe it. But it's very obvious when I post seizure footage. You'll be able to see that something changes, something comes over my eyes. They go glassy and shiny, and I don't know what it is, but something changes about them and the way that they look. Often my mouth will pull to the right-hand side. It has almost never pulled to the left-hand side. It has always pulled to my right-hand side, like this. I've just put that on, but that is what it is like. Other times it feels like I'm just about to vomit. Rather than vomiting, I will have a seizure instead. Another sign is the colour of my face will go white, or sometimes almost like a green, like a white-green colour. The colour of my face goes very odd for me, and it goes almost musty white, like a greeny, grey, white colour all at once. I look very ill just before I have a seizure. I also go ice cold sometimes. My body temperature either goes ice cold or sometimes I get extremely hot just before my seizures. And within a matter of seconds, just before the seizure happens, in the underarm area of my t-shirt, within a matter of seconds, my entire t-shirt in those areas will be soaking wet with sweat. I get drenched in sweat and then I have a seizure. Another sign is I usually have an increase in my tics just before I have a seizure. I will have an explosion of tics or an increase in my tics suddenly out of nowhere, and then I will have a seizure. And then once again, my tics will disappear after the seizure has happened. Sometimes I can have huge tic attacks just before I have a seizure, or a cluster of seizure in my case, because I always cluster. A tic attack is where you have a huge cluster of tics that go on relentlessly without stopping and without a break. They are extremely uncomfortable, and my experience, because of the amount of movement both in my body and the vocal tics that I have, it creates a lot of energy and a lot of heat in my body, and again, once again, my clothes will be drenched in sweat. Tic attack, in my experience, will end in a seizure, and then immediately after the seizure cluster is over, the tics will stop. In the past, the tic attacks that I've had have gone up to 45 minutes to 1 hour, and then I will have a seizure cluster and the tics will go away. Other times I have a change in my voice. There will be a change in my voice in the tone and in the pitch and in the way I speak, and that is also a sign that I'm going to have a seizure. I hope this video has been helpful. I hope you've learned something new. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope if you have tics also, maybe you can relate to some of it, and maybe you can't. And if you can't and you have different seizure warning signs beforehand, let me know in the comment box down below. And let me know if you have epileptic seizures, if any of your seizure warning signs are similar to mine, even though my seizures are non-epileptic to my knowledge. And remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed the video and you're interested in learning more about seizures, neurological disorders, long COVID and autism. Okay, bye. I'll see you in another video.